Okay, so you've definitely heard of Ubuntu, right? You might even be using it this very moment. But what you probably don't know is that behind one of the world's most popular operating systems, there's this profound philosophy about what it actually means to be human. For millions of us, developers, sysadmins, tech lovers, Ubuntu is our go-to. It's that reliable Linux distribution we count on. I mean, it's known for being powerful, super stable, and secure. A massive chunk of the internet's backbone runs on it. And because it's open source, it's constantly getting better thanks to a whole global community. And when we talk about security, we are talking about some serious, fine-grained control. You've got tools like AppArmor built right in, which lets you create essentially a security sandbox around every single application. It gives you this incredibly precise power to say what each program can and, more importantly, can't do. With just a few simple commands, you can see exactly what's happening on your system and make sure everything is locked down tight. It's all about creating these secure, isolated environments. So yeah, this is the Ubuntu most of us know. Technical, precise, and really, really powerful. But let's just pause here for a second. We've been talking about code, security, servers, all this tech stuff. But the name itself, Ubuntu, it isn't some techie acronym or a clever bit of jargon. No, it comes from something much, much older. So what does it actually mean? Well, the word Ubuntu comes from the Nguni languages of southern Africa, and its literal translation is simple, but it's also incredibly deep. It means humanness. It's not about what a person is biologically, but about the quality of being human. It's a value, something you can have more or less of. This famous saying is really the key to the whole philosophy. In the Nguni languages, it's Umuntu Gumuntu Gabatu. Now, this isn't just saying, hey, we depend on each other to survive. It's way deeper. It's a call to action. It's saying that our ultimate purpose in life is to become better people. And the only way we can do that is through our relationships and our connections with others. So how do we actually do that? What does it really mean to build our humanity through other people? Well, the philosopher Thaddeus Metz gives us a fantastic way to understand this. He breaks the whole concept of community down into two core pillars. Now, what's really fascinating here is how this separates community into two related but different ideas. On one side, you've got identity. This is all about seeing yourself as part of a we, sharing goals, taking pride in what the group does together. Then, on the other side, you have solidarity. This is the action part, helping each other out, feeling sympathy, actually doing things for the common good. The Ubuntu philosophy says that real, true community, that only happens when you have both. And this leads to a really powerful and different way of thinking about human dignity. In a lot of Western philosophy, dignity is tied to our individual autonomy, our freedom to make our own choices. But in Ubuntu, dignity comes from our capacity for community. Our inherent worth is rooted in our potential to connect with others, to share a life, and to care for one another. Of course, like any big idea, Ubuntu isn't without its critics. Some people argue it's just too vague. I mean, how do you use it as a guide for laws or specific moral dilemmas? Others worry that it leans too heavily into collectivism, maybe even suppressing individual rights for the good of the group. And there's a third question. Can a value system from traditional, smaller societies really work in our massive, globalized world today? And this quote from the scholar H. Mbodi, man, it just nails a really smart critique. He's warning us not to just assume that all harmony is good. Think about it. A relationship can be perfectly harmonious, but also deeply oppressive. He uses the example of a cowboy and his horse. Sometimes the most ethical, the most human thing to do is to break a relationship, to fight oppression. So the key is that community can't just be an excuse for blind conformity. So that brings us back. How did this ancient, complex African philosophy become the name for a cutting-edge global technology project? Well, the connection is actually way deeper than you might think. The word itself has been on an incredible journey. For centuries, it was this deeply embedded cultural idea. Then, during the decolonization movements in the mid-20th century, it got framed as a kind of African humanism. In 1993, it was actually written into the epilogue of South Africa's post-apartheid constitution as a guiding ideal for healing the nation. And then, in 2004, a South African entrepreneur named Mark Shuttleworth chose it as the name for his new operating system. And here's the crucial point. Just look at the core values of the open source software movement. It's all about collaboration, about sharing your work for everyone's benefit, and about building a global community.
It's about putting the communal good above individual profit. Do those values sound familiar? They align almost perfectly with the pillars of Ubuntu philosophy, identity, and solidarity. The name wasn't a gimmick, it was a mission statement.
And the power of this philosophy has been recognized all over the world. At Nelson Mandela's memorial, Barack Obama spoke about Ubuntu. He described it as Mandela's greatest gift, this idea that we are all bound together, that our own humanity is wrapped up in the humanity of everyone else. So, after going through the technology and the philosophy, we learned on this powerful, simple summary of the whole idea: I am because we are. And it's so important to see that this isn't just an idea from one or two cultures. As you can see here, variations of this word, this concept, they exist all across the African continent, from Botho and Setswana to Utu and Swahili. It is a shared understanding of what it means to be human. And ultimately, this is the core call to action of Ubuntu philosophy. Our humanity, it isn't something we're just born with. It's a project. It's something we have to work on for our entire lives. And the way we do that work is by strengthening our bonds with other people, by practicing both identity and solidarity. And that leaves us with one last thought. We started this whole journey with an operating system, a tool that powers so much of our digital world. And we end with a philosophy that calls for deep, meaningful human connection. So the question for all of us is, in a world that's defined by digital networks and online interactions, how do we practice genuine community? How do we build real identity and solidarity, not just with a click, but in our everyday lives?